So welcome everyone to accelerating IoT applications in the real world using edge computing. I'm Blaine Mathieu, the CEO of Pratexo. With me today is Audun Grynning, the CEO of Vidju Holdings, who's an owner of the Norwegian grid operator HKN that we will speak about, and Anders Englund, the CEO of Attentec, an IoT-focused system integrator, and we will all do more detailed introductions in just a few minutes. So this will largely be a panel format discussion. We have a few slides from each of us to introduce ourselves, our companies a little bit, and then talk about our perspective on the market overall, but that won't take too long. Then we're going to get into an open discussion. To help in that discussion, please do enter any questions or comments into the chat window. Once we get into the discussion part of this, I'll be monitoring the chat window to see what you come up with, and we'll interject that in real time. So we're not going to save Q&A to the end. We're going to do it in real time as we're having our discussion. So please do enter your thoughts into the chat window. And with that, I think let's get rolling, gentlemen. So I will kick it off, and then we'll do each of you in turn. So as I said a second ago, my name is Blaine Mathieu, CEO of Pratexo. I'm a former Gartner analyst, but don't hold that against me. And I've been in enterprise software companies for the last 3 decades, based primarily out of the San Francisco Bay Area, but have done a lot of work internationally over those decades. And I'm really excited to be CEO of Pratexo. I'll tell you more about in a second. Was named Edge Computing World Edge Startup of the Year in 2021, and recently won the ABB Electrification Startup Challenge out of over 100 startups in the IoT, AI, machine learning, and edge computing space. And now we're working with ABB on a number of projects. So really excited to be part of the Pratexo story. And for those that don't know already, Pratexo fundamentally is we call it an edge solution acceleration platform that brings the benefits of cloud computing down to the infrastructure edge, the industrial edge, especially the electrification edge. And fundamentally, the platform allows us to simplify and accelerate your ability to deploy and manage solutions to your most critical operational issues, the ones that you need to solve to electrify the world. And we have a number of applications and use cases and customers primarily focused on the electrification space, although through partners like system integrator Attentec, our technology is being brought into a wide range of spaces. Edge computing is a very relevant technology now in today's modern world, and across a wide range of spaces and industries. And to talk about why that is a little bit more, let me give you my perspective before I turn it over to Anders. So when I think about the value journey that many companies are trying to go through today, they're starting with basically collecting and analyzing data, just understanding what data is being generated, keeping it from being so-called dark data. Once you've done that, then maybe you set up basic alerts and notifications. Something is going wrong, a machine is shut off, or a voltage is too high. Then you maybe get into using that data to do predictive things and preventative maintenance, running algorithms, and maybe even intelligent machine learning and AI-enabled algorithms on that data. And then finally, the nirvana state, you might say, is enabling real-time system control, right? So autonomous, highly efficient, effective control of systems, again, in real time. Now, that's a great vision, and most companies, depending on what part of the operations they're working through, are somewhere in that journey, and probably in a different place in that journey depending on which operational aspect they're focused on. The challenge, though, is, I think, a crisis of complexity. We're getting more and more machines and sensors and systems generating more and more data, running more applications and algorithms and models and machine learning, and the level of complexity is just increasing. And frankly, central cloud computing was never designed initially to handle these kind of use cases. It wasn't designed to be able to process massive amounts of data in real time, close to where it is generated, ensuring security, data privacy, and all the other benefits of edge computing. So that is really where edge computing comes in. And that's why, again, my former colleagues at Gartner say that by 2025, 75% of enterprise generated data will be processed on the edge, compared to only 10% back in 2021. So a massive, while the move toward cloud computing is actually still continuing, there's a massive move of enterprise applications toward the cloud. There's this other move toward processing a lot of data, especially IoT data on the edge, and then maybe only sending lighter event streams into central clouds. So that's my very high level perspective on what's going on with the industry in general and edge computing. And now let me turn it over to Anders, who will introduce himself, his company, and provide his perspective. And Anders, I'll switch the slides. You just tell me when, all right?
Okay, thank you, Blaine. First of all, I thank you very much for being part of this panel debate. I work as an IoT expert, helping companies and organizations to find the business value of IoT and how to use that to enhance and digitize their business. And I also work every day as the CEO of Attentec. We can go to the next slide. And at Attentec, we are a system integrator for IoT. We call ourselves an independent expert with an extensive experience in complex systems development. Doing an IoT application requires to understand also how the system as a total will work, and you need to be able to handle that complexity in order to create successful systems. We typically work as a long-time partner with our customers in order to create new products, services, and business opportunities together. And we've been around for 17 years, since 2005, and are very proud to have delivered over 100 successful IoT projects. And we're currently operating in the Nordic countries where our customers are, but their customers in turn are located all over the globe. We can go to the next slide. We see today, this is the German analytics company, IoT Analytics. They make predictions and also actual numbers of how many connected devices there are around the world. And this 2021 actual numbers are 12 billion connected units around the world. And that's not the laptops, the mobile phones we have, that's really IoT devices. We're 8 billion people today on the globe, so it's 1.5 times as many connected IoT devices. And this will soar in the next couple of years. We'll double that number until 2025. So this is really taking off now. We can move to the next slide. And Microsoft published an investigation 2 years ago where they asked 3,000 people working with IoT today, what's the greatest challenge of using IoT more? And if you can see on the colored column there, the work was still in progress, some complexity, technical issue, lack of budget, staff, compliance issues, security issues, lack of knowledge, or you simply haven't found the right solution yet. So we as a Attentec, we tried to help our customer to be the guide in the IoT jungle to make the right decisions. And we can move to the next slide, which has a picture from Industry 4.0, some of the actors in that arena. And as you can see, it is really a jungle with all the different companies operating there, how to make the right choices, what platform to use, what hardware to use, etc. So our mission is to be the guide to help with the business development, how to use IoT to create the right business value, what architecture to choose, how to realize the IoT application, and then not the least to operate it in a safe and reliable way during its entire lifetime. Thank you, Blaine.
Thank you, Anders. Appreciate the perspective. All right, Audun.
Hi there. Quick introduction of myself. I'm the CEO of a company called Vidju Holding, a Norwegian company, headquartered in Geilo. My background is not IT. It's got a master's in energy technology. So that's actually thermodynamics and electrical stuff. But I have some experience in various positions. I was VP of subsea products and test facilities in a company called Aker Solutions, both in Norway and in the US. I was managing director for the power grid company Hallingdal Kraftnett for 5 years, and I'm now currently in Vidju Holding. Next slide, please.
There we go.
to give you a brief introduction to what we are, as many other companies, energy and infrastructure companies in Norway, we are publicly owned by the municipalities here in the region of Hallingdal. We own the power grid company Hallingdal Kraftnett, and that is also a very typical, and in terms of Norwegian standards, a medium-sized company, having around 30,000 customers. We own a fiber infrastructure company called Snug Fiber, that's focusing on B2B deliveries, customers. And we have Bruse, which is a broadband company, which also offer electric car charging, working a little bit with IoT solutions and providing or delivering solar energy systems. We have 8,000 customers, and it's more the B2C company. And then we also have three more companies in the structure. We've got the consulting business, we've got the real estate company, and we also offer telecom services. Next slide, please. So Anders was talking about the jungle. Yes, that is, I fully agree. It's a jungle out there, but I'm gonna try to give you a very brief perspective on where we are coming from as a power grid and a utility company. And it's pretty obvious to me that, you know, the traditional way of thinking is very much challenged. And where we before thought that the answer was just to build more infrastructure, we are today facing numerous other challenges that make us, we have to think in a new way. And in this relatively turbulent environment, opportunities also arise. And that has very much to do with data. And with more and more customers becoming prosumers, both consuming and actually producing, putting energy into the power grid on the low voltage distribution system, the challenge and the complexity goes from the high voltage domain down to the low voltage. And in order to control such a system, we need more data. We need to know in more real time what is going on and how we can optimize the systems. And traditionally, we have multiple and numerous siloed IT systems. They don't speak the same language, and we cannot get hold of the data that is actually there. And there are many good reasons to have constructed it this way, but facing the challenges we now do, it's important that we are able to fix this and of course do it in a secure way. So for us, it's about to first and foremost make the data that we have available. We need to use that to inform our customers. They expect us to inform in more or less real time. We need to add some intelligence going from the simple algorithms to the more advanced, and then ultimately more go towards automating and predicting how we're gonna operate the system. And I believe that as we use more and more data, you have more and more kind of specialized or niche players will come into, or call it the operating domain, and will act as an important partner in what is becoming more and more the digital part of our infrastructure. and will affect the way we do our both do and run our business. And as I said, introducing all these new IT solutions and more data, it will definitely challenge our vulnerability, and we need to take care of that. And I believe also that seeing it from a security perspective, we are introducing uncertainties that we need to deal with. And in Norway, we are not, by regulatory authorities, allowed to go to ship all data to the cloud, and we cannot either do that because we need to be able to operate in times where we are not connected to the cloud. So I believe the future is some kind of a hybrid. We need a lot more data, high resolution data. We need to make it available. We need to process the data where it is generated and do that in a secure way. And it's important for, I think, the industry to put more effort into trying to understand this jungle, which Anders was pointing out, and participate in innovative projects so that we ourselves as end customers can explore and ultimately understand what are our options. So with that, that was my
excellent
intro.
Thank you, Audun. Really appreciate that. So now I'm going to stop sharing the slides. We're just going to go to speaker view here, so you can see the panelists as they speak. And I appreciate the intros that everybody gave, their perspective, and I think they're pretty aligned. And the interesting thing is we didn't rehearse this ahead of time. Actually, nobody had seen anybody else's slides prior to a few minutes ago. So it is really interesting how aligned they are, and very, very much on purpose. We, as you often see these webinars where you've got a vendor like Pratexo and a client or an end user like Audun with HKN, the power grid. But I thought, in the IoT space, again, given the complexity that we're just talking about, the complexity of pulling these solutions together, it really made sense to also have a system integrator, right, in terms of Anders and Attentec, because I think in many cases it takes three to tango to fundamentally build effective solutions in this space. So that's why we have the panel that we have today. And now let's, so please do start popping questions. I'm starting to see some of them come into the window already. So continue that, and I'll work those in as the discussion continues. So why don't we kick it off with, what do you think about my opening premise, Audun, that due to the complexity in this space, system integrator or some kind of third-party developer is necessary to bridge these systems together, or do you think it's possible or how possible is it for end users to actually build these solutions themselves using the technology that's available today?
This is a huge challenge, not only for power grid operators, but in order, we can't afford to have expertise within this domain in the company, so we totally depend on partnering up with system integrators, and we also we are dependent on the fact that the industry need to open up. We have been, historically we have been struggling, to be quite honest, with the vendors that deliver these niche systems, and they need to open up, and we need to put the requirements for a foundation for us going into that is future proof. And in order to be future proof, we have to consider all these important aspects, like we know that real-time data is becoming more and more important. So, that's one, okay, that will create some additional challenges, to process the data that is relevant locally. We want to reduce on the cloud costs that will increase extremely when you get a lot of data. And we need to have this redundant principle. And the vulnerability is extremely important for an infrastructure player like us. So we need to cater for that in order also to handle the security issue. It's a very complex chain or value chain here that we need help to fix.
I think my perspective on that is also, we see companies, typically when we start working together, you're maybe new to this area, and there's so, as you mentioned, Audun, there are so many different topics that you have to be expert within to create a really good, secure, available solution. And some cases, companies want to develop their own competencies within this area. Sometimes it works fine, but sometimes it doesn't, because you don't get a critical mass of people. Maybe you're dependent on one or two persons, and then eventually they quit. I just handed out a proposal to a company today with a person who had been we did the initial work, and there was a person doing the work then for a couple of years. He quit now. They're not planning to hire a replacement. So we have to come back and find out what they've been doing and then work with that again. So I think you should be really clear on what you would like to keep in-house and what you like to have partners for. That's critical because this is a long-term commitment that you go into here.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Did you what spurred you to start Attentec originally and focus on the IoT space?
Well, it's a fantastic technology. My vision with IoT is that you could connect everything. I mean, talk about creating a safer society when you can make sure you know where everything is, what its status is, when you need to maintain it, etc. You can optimize a lot of energy, so you can save energy, make the planet a better place to live in. So I think the technology has a fantastic potential. As we see 12 billion connected devices now, and it will double in the next couple of years. That's really a fantastic opportunity to help companies, organizations to monetize that value and make the world a better place also by doing that.
I guess a similar question to you, Audun. You're obviously, you're not a technology vendor or a system integrator, but you have a very forward-looking perspective, I think, on the use of technology in your business operations. What is the genesis of that? What caused your perspective to be as it is?
Perhaps my background, I guess. I'm truly interested in technology and the problems or the challenges that they can solve for us and create value. And in our business, it's about being, as in all businesses, even though the power grid is a monopoly, we are in a competition with all the other companies, because we are kind of weighed against all the other players in the market. And we're not a huge company, but we can make decisions quick, and we can start small and prove some concepts, and we learn a lot on the way doing that. And it gives us, hopefully, our employees, interested in technology, a motivation to perhaps create the solution that will be the standard for the future. And that gives me, it's intriguing to try to do that. It motivates us, me.
I think digitalization is actually, you don't need to be a large player to use it and take the benefits of it. So it's sometimes you're quicker and faster. That helps a lot.
Do you what size of companies do you tend to work with at Attentec, Anders?
It's the mid-size to large size companies, and some of the larger companies, they do have a lot of the competencies within in-house. So I think our golden spots are the mid-size companies to the smaller, larger companies for whom, I mean, the Volvos, etc., those, they have their own development. They know how to do this and been doing it for quite some time. But for companies who are, this is a new technology, we'd like to digitalize our operations. And how do we do that? They don't even, the company management, they don't even know how to get started. That's where we can provide a lot of value.
Just comment in on you know, why do we do this? And it's quite foggy, as I said on one of my slides. It's or very often you don't really grasp what can you do with the Internet of Things. Well, you need to start trying out something, and you need to choose the so-called low-hanging fruits. And that's not about artificial intelligence and big data. It's to start somewhere. And you can very quickly see that this is actually helping me out. And then you can build on that. I have a feeling that you are kind of, you say no because artificial intelligence, you need huge amounts of data, but don't start there. Go for the, define some good use cases, real problems that you know this, hey, this could help. Start there. I mean, I'm kicking in an open door maybe, but that's how I feel.
That's a good way to think about it. That's an interesting perspective on AI and machine learning. Before I give my perspective, I want to hear you, Anders. How many, what percent of your IoT implementations today are actually today using machine learning or AI, would you say, to reflect on what?
Less than 1%.
What was the number?
Less than 1%.
Less than 1. But not zero. No,
not zero. It's not zero. No, but AI machine learning, that's one of the things I think will happen in the future. And I think you should, I like Audun's comment, because that's where you should start. And we use analytical or statistical methods to analyze the data and then to make the conclusions. I liked your, Blaine, your graph there where you can go to real-time control. But there are data which are hard to do analytically or statistically. If you have sound, if you have video, if you have images, or if you have text, and if those are interesting for your IoT application, then AI, ML, it turns out it's not that hard to provide AI machine learning applications today. I mean, the tools are there, the algorithms are there, and you have to do massage the data a bit to make sure that's in good shape. But it's surprisingly fast to deploy a machine learning algorithm that will do some kind of analysis for you.
Yeah. Yeah, being on the sort of platform side of the IoT space for most of the last 10 years, what I've seen, especially working with, as you say, mid to large size companies, they very often have a vision for how machine learning will be used at some point in the future. So they want to be able to support it. But the day one application is usually much quicker to implement, much simpler. And then, but they want to keep the door open for AI because they see it coming. It's definitely coming. It's already invading a lot of aspects of our personal lives that we don't even think of as being AI. But it's all around us today on the consumer side, and I think it's inevitable. And most I think companies believe it's inevitable on the operational side, but they're just not quite there yet. In interesting perspective. 1%. That's very interesting.
Less than 1%.
To hear that from the horse's mouth. Well, maybe we did get a question around specific to the electrification space. Maybe to you, Audun. What do you think is the lowest hanging fruit? Like what needs to be done first, I guess, or to be focused on most directly in terms of improving maybe operational efficiency or effectiveness, or what's the nearest term challenge? Maybe the most open door, if we're kicking in open doors. And then I'll ask you, Anders, if you're seeing any work in this space as well, electrification widely defined. But I'll start with you, Audun.
Okay, I think I don't remember all the 20 use cases we have, but we have defined them. And first thing is we have standards. like in Norway, it's called REM. Implement those and make your IoT system give you an alert. I mean, it's the same thing you said, Blaine. Within defined limits, you're good to operate. If you go beyond or above or below any threshold, that might be a combination of a set of known data. Start there.
Yep.
So implement what is already standard into a simple algorithms.
Yep.
But then I'm very I believe that finding kind of a platform or a foundation that are future-proof for all of your data, and doing that in a way that you're assured that the system is available, even though you're for 30% of your grid is out, it need to work.
Yeah,
that's kind of another challenge. It's not kicking in open doors and that stuff, but that is very important because at the end of the day, you start collecting data. Maybe you don't know even where that data is. So you need to make robust platform.
Yep. Makes sense. Anders, what again, I keep asking you these quantitative questions here, but what % of your business, I guess now and historically, has been focused on the energy sector? Is that an important sector for you now in this IoT space, or no?
We would love to be very vertical, but we tend to be horizontal. So I don't know, we've ended up in all different kind of businesses. But what we see within the energy sector now, there's a short-term requirement to minimize the power peaks because of what's happening in the world, and there is a lack of enough energy. So if you can minimize the peaks and have your customers save energy in a smart and efficient way, and to use real-time measurements, to use digitalization to help customers minimize their peaks, will make sure that the energy will suffice, and also that you could maybe avoid doing new investments with the investments that you have. I think that's a short term, or maybe that's going to be a long term one. Then there are other underlying factors, like Audun said, the prosumer side of the new networks. Suddenly, I'm still waiting for my solar cells to come. I don't know. I ordered them in May or March or some more time. I don't even have a delivery date, but a lot of people would have solar cells now, especially with the energy prices in Europe. It is really interesting to become a prosumer. So I think that's one thing that will happen. And also another thing that we see happening is that's all over all businesses, but I don't know how to translate it even to English, but energy companies in Sweden used to call their customers belastningspunkter. Do you know how to translate that, Audun?
No.
No, it's a point where they actually deplete energy from the grid. It's not a very positive way. So to improve the customer dialogue, I think a lot of companies are moving into that and becoming more aware of how important that is to have that dialogue with your customers.
Yeah, my personal reflection on that complexity in the energy grid is, as some of my friends know, of course, I'm plugged into the California energy grid, PG&E. Many of you are familiar with the company and some of the challenges they've had starting a lot of fires actually in California from PG&E equipment going down. So there's a big push to use IoT to help address that directly. But besides being plugged into PG&E, my house also has a 22 kilowatt standby generator running on propane, on a 500-gallon propane tank, and a 30 kilowatt solar array on the roof. And I talked to my electrician the other day about installing a panel of batteries in the garage, because then I would truly be off the grid once that happens. And actually, his advice to me was, Frank, unfortunately, his advice to me was, don't do it yet. right now, if you want, it's not that the batteries themselves don't work, although they are hard to get. I think it's a 1 year now waiting list to get the batteries. So the solar panels are one thing. The batteries, I think, are even harder these days because the electric cars are scooping them all up. But the real issue, the electrician told me, was just having all of these systems, the regular power grid, standby power, battery, and solar all work together in an optimal way. We haven't solved that yet, fundamentally. And he said, you know what, wait another year or two and we'll have much better software, because this is fundamentally mostly a software problem, right?
Software and measurement.
Yeah, like how do you integrate all these data flows? It's flows of energy, but it's flows of data, right? And integrating them in a way which optimizes the balance between all of these systems. Obviously, this is partly why we created Pratexo, to be a platform for companies that are helping to create what you might call virtual power plants. And you look at my setup, that's actually exactly what I have. I've got a virtual power plant right now, solar, propane. The only thing I'm missing is a storage capability, which again could come in the not too distant future. So a lot of complexity going on the consumer side, and of course a lot of that is, as you're saying, is being repeated across the industrial ecosystem as well. So maybe let's turn a little bit toward technology itself. This panel, or this webinar, was actually called "Accelerating IoT Apps in the Real World Using Edge Computing," and we haven't talked specifically about edge computing yet. Although I think indirectly we've talked about the need to be able to process data in real time, to be able to process it even if you're offline or disconnected from central systems. You know, the implication is edge fundamentally. But I'm interested in maybe your perspective first, Anders. I know I've been in, as I mentioned, in the industrial IoT space for about a decade now. And you know, the vast majority of what the industry calls IoT platforms were actually first built as cloud-based platforms. They weren't built to run on the edge. They run in the cloud, in central systems. And my theory and my perspective has long been that's all fine at the earlier stages of IoT, where we weren't really putting that much data out of these systems, and you weren't running the most mission critical applications. You know, the first 1 or 2 applications that organizations were running were more proof of concepts. Even if they were in production, they were still just proving that this IoT thing could do something. But it's not like the whole manufacturing plant is going to shut down if the application goes off. But I think that's now changing. And from what I see in the market, more and more companies are starting to put lots of sensors, massive amounts of data, and actually running mission critical applications like the Norwegian power grid based on IoT. So, but I'd love your perspective on maybe the evolution of the cloud in IoT, and then what you think about the edge going forward, Anders, and of course Audun as well. Let's start with Anders.
I think the picture you showed there in the beginning were about measurement initially, and then finding out conclusions about that data, and then active, and then controlling. And because IoT started with collecting data, and it was perfectly fine with the cloud solution, and that's fine for a lot of applications. You don't need anything else. But if you're moving to the energy grid side, then that won't be enough. So you should look at the application you're using. And once you get to that kind of critical applications, what you get from edge computing is low latency and availability. Those are the 2 major factors you get. So you can control your devices no matter what happens with the cloud. You don't need that connection. And you have the availability also. So those 2 are major issues. We see also that the amount of data collected from these 25 billion connected units in 2-3 years, the cost for storing data in the cloud will be, and there's a lot of customers already complaining about that. They come to us and say, how can we reduce the cost for operating the cloud? So we will need to reduce the data amount at the edge, and that's very good to do in an edge computing facility. It adds a lot of complexity, So how should you manage an edge network? It's important that the platform you choose has capabilities to manage that. Otherwise, it becomes really, really difficult. And also the security issue, you have to be able to manage that in a safe way. So I think it depends on the application. If you're moving to the energy sectors, you're definitely going to need it, where you need the low latency and the availability. Then you need the edge computing. There are application classes where you don't need it, and then the cloud will be fine. So I think we'll see both sides in the future.
Agreed 100%. I don't see it as edge or cloud. It's edge and cloud. Yes. And as you said, for high volume data storage, if it's necessary, that's obviously what clouds were created originally for. You know, AWS and others is primarily for data storage, and then application processing eventually, and other capabilities. Of course, the vast majority of IoT data or data that's generated from IoT devices doesn't need to be stored. Right? It may need to be looked at, processed, but you don't need to put terabytes of data into a cloud, you know, for the most part, right? But
someone is going to complain about the bills. Quite soon.
What's your perspective, Audun, on the sort of thoughts and maybe benefits of edge computing inside of your operational challenges and systems?
I mean, for us, kind of resilience is absolutely key and fundamental to everything we do, and the things we are putting into the real operation of a power grid need to have that resilience. And I very much like the idea of establishing this private, secure, distributed, local or regional cloud. Can't take it out, right? The concept of that, I think, is very extremely interesting. And I believe that there's a lot of dark data out there, which in high resolution will not be as dark. I mean, you will be able to ultimately go to predict by unlocking that high resolution data. You can't do that today because all the reasons we've talked about here today, costs and capacity, and what if the system goes down, etc. You can't send everything to the cloud. So I think these are from a non-IT engineer, this is what you need to think about when offering this to clients. And I want to comment on one thing more about the use cases. One use case, maybe I'm derailing a bit here now, but
go ahead.
We have 2,000 transformers, and the authority and the regulations say that we're going to inspect those 2,000 transformers one time every year. Why are we doing that? It's not necessary. So that, my 2 points about that. It's, we're doing things that we can fix with IoT and technology, high or low resolution. I don't care. We need the relevant data in order to not have to go out there on 2,000 trips every year. And every 5th year, we're having a heavier inspection. So that's a quick win and value adding effort. And one more point. It's not only technology, but it's also regulatory. I can't speak for US or Sweden, but at least in Norway, for me, one extremely important point is you need someone to orchestrate this complexity in the grid and the prosumers. Everything affects each other, and from my perspective, and it's not the correct way in at least Norway, where the authority says that the market is going to fix it. That is, I'm not saying that it is impossible, but it's going to take a lot of time until the market will fix that. I am of the firm opinion that, you know, the power grid operators should be allowed to take a more active role, preferably as one unit. You know, if it's country or Scandinavia or Europe, I don't know, but to be more clear on the regulatory aspects of how to orchestrate this very complex system is key to, in order for, you know, to accelerate both IoT and edge.
Yeah, I agree. And I think talking to a number of customers and partners in the energy space, and in particular, you know, national security is all bound up in that these days more than ever. You know, cost structures, you know, that affect society in very serious ways. So governments and other organizations, I think, are becoming more involved, which could be a positive if it can drive more integration. But at the same time, we hear a lot of our partners and customers in the space not complaining about government, but stating, you know, yes, that's a great idea to implement this new system. Right now, we'd have to put it through quite a process to get it approved. And I think technology is able to run at a pace that sometimes governments and regulatory agencies aren't able to run at. So we have to find the right balance there and create secure, private systems. And I think we all agree that edge computing is part of that story, even in particularly, say, in the Norwegian power grid, as you've been talking about, because you can keep most data local, process it right there where it's generated, not open up your systems to having all the raw data sent anywhere that could potentially be intercepted and used to maybe try to shut down a system or you know, a lot of nefarious things that we're becoming more aware of these days, I think, than ever before, in terms of third-party actors being able to play a bad role. Still on the technology side, there was a question around the use of open APIs in these applications, and out in the very beginning, you mentioned the need to open up systems and not have niche systems. Maybe thoughts from both of you. Maybe I'll start with you, Anders, on the perspective of the use of open systems, open source software components in these architectures versus black boxes. I know my own perspective is a lot of original IoT systems and applications were fundamentally black boxes. You put some data in, something happened, and then something came out. But more and more, we're seeing the use of open architectures and open components and being able to connect and integrate with APIs. What's your perspective, Anders?
10 years ago, we built most of the application on open source software. It has a lot of challenges too. You have to always work with them to make sure that all the security issues are open. So you have to always make sure that they're updated, and sometimes you have problems when there are updates. So today we always use platforms from a vendor who provides a software or a platform that can be used. And there are other reasons than just the open source issue. I think also to have the power to develop the platform at the pace which the technology is evolving makes it also much more interesting to use an existing platform. So I think there has been a trend from using open source to platforms. So that was one answer. Then the other was about open APIs, which I strongly believe in. But we see it in vertical after vertical, who often, like in real estate, people would like to have one platform where you can share data in a building, but who should own it? And no one wants really to take, or several people wants to take the ownership of that question. And a lot of vertical providers of systems, they don't want to share all their data. So there's a war going on, not a war, but a conflict anyway, conflict of interest. Who should open up data and what data? So I think it's not easy to see a solution to that problem. Some verticals do have solutions for that, but it's I believe in open APIs, but
Yeah,
Not everyone does.
easier said than done. What do you think, Audun? You're the one who brought up this topic about the need to open up. What are you getting at there?
Hallelujah to open APIs. I guess that's my comment. I couldn't really comment on using open source software or yes or no, but I mean, for us as clients, I fully agree with Anders. I mean, there's a little bit of a fight there. And every vendor wants the big part of the cake, right? And I can understand that. And who owns this? This I'm not sure if the expression is old, but this data lake. I mean, I as customers, I want to have that, 100% control and give and take data as we see, fit.
Yeah.
So
the other issue that's closely related to that is silos, the siloization of these solutions, right? You go into whether it's a manufacturing plant or a fish farm or the bridge of a ship, and you see guys sitting in front of multiple screens because you've got all these disconnected systems that are all pushing their data to one screen, and the person sitting in front is meant to be the integration layer fundamentally, right? That's not how you create an autonomous, highly efficient organization that runs 24/7. But you can't create these integrated systems if all the data is locked in these silos, right? And so I think that's a critical challenge for us to continue to use both technology to overcome. Again, I think that's partly why Pratexo was created, but it's also, as you said, as you both said, sort of a mindset about enabling open flows of data in a secure and private way, of course, but enabling you to make use of the complete visibility. We call it your visibility across the entire event stream that's happening in your organization. So you don't have siloed visibility, but overall visibility. So that's the future we have to get to. It is going that way, and it has to, I think, fundamentally. Well, I think we're almost out of time. I know there have been a bunch of questions that are sort of electric grid related, and I think we did touch on most of them one way or another during this chat today. But I will give the group maybe a chance to answer one last question. Fundamentally, what's some advice that you have for a business owner that is trying to use technologies like IoT, edge computing, maybe AI and machine learning in the future to solve some of their most critical operational issues? So advice, maybe why don't you go first, Anders?
Get a partner who knows what you're interested in, so you can get help and do it right the first time. Get a system integrator, for example.
Yeah. No, I would agree 100%. And it's not just because obviously you are a system integrator, but I think most companies do need to partner to make these solutions happen and to solve their critical needs. Some, as you said, some do have expertise in-house, but still most don't in these cases. And I couldn't agree more on that. Audun, what do you think? So you are a business operator trying to solve critical operational issues across energy, broadband, EV charging, a whole bunch of areas, right? You touch all of them. So what advice do you have to somebody who's in your situation and maybe they can keep all their hair from turning gray that quickly?
Or you could lose some of it, I guess,
yes.
in the process. Oh, I believe, we're all humans and we work, we have all busy days, a medium-sized company. We haven't got a large innovation department, but you have to decide. You have to put away two things, or you have to prioritize. You need to set aside some time to work with this topic, which will, I believe strongly, ultimately will, have a big impact. If you're not there, you're out of business. So you need to set aside some time to investigate, and you need a little bit of money. And with that, go for some smaller projects. That's my very simple advice.
Right on. And I was actually going to say something very much along those lines. Think big, but start small. Start small, get started, but then build that vision. And you mentioned earlier, starting with one, we've started with one, core use case with HKN, Hallingdal Kraftnett. But as you said, I think you said there's 14 or 20 other use cases, other bits of value that can be delivered over time. And when all that's completed, it'll be a very interesting, system. But great to have that vision, to build it, to develop it, along with a partner in many cases. But get started, start that journey, because your competitors probably are, and things are changing very quickly these days. So let me wrap up here by showing one final slide. This is how you can get a hold of the people on the panel today. Our contact info, email addresses, websites are on the slide here. I want to thank Audun and Anders from joining. I think it was a really interesting panel. We did record this conversation. I forgot to mention at the beginning, I'll be sending around a link to the recording for you to share with your colleagues and friends afterward. And again, gentlemen, thank you for making this, I think, one of the more interesting IoT related conversations I've been a part of. Appreciate that so much.